All right. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. Good evening. It is just 7:06 on Thursday. Welcome to the Aurora Committee of Adjustment meeting. I'll start by introducing the committee members and staff. I am the committee chair. My name is Tom Plamondon. The remaining members are as follows. Clarence Louis is the vice chair. Michelle Boyer, Steve D'Angeli, and Daniel Lajeunesse make up the remaining members of the committee. And in addition, the secretary treasurer is Prashanthi Manoharan. The planner this evening is Matthew Peverini. So for each application that will be considered tonight, the following process will occur. And of course, this is a virtual meeting, which is normally held in public. However, with the current conditions, we are able to conduct our meetings in this manner. However, the process will be as close to the original as possible. So I will briefly outline the purpose of the application or applications. Then the applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to make a presentation. However, one is not required. It is the applicant's decision whether they wish to speak or let the application proceed on the merits of the information as received. Following any initial comments from the applicant, I will invite members of the public who have an interest in the application to come forward and address the committee. Those members of the public who wish to speak must clearly state their name and address. There is a request for notice form that is available on the town's website, and you can access that through the internet. After completing the form, it should be made available to the secretary treasurer. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once discussion has commenced in respect of a motion, no further presentations shall be made. If you require any assistance this evening with regard to material that you want to have accessible, please let me know. This meeting is being audio and video recorded as well. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help the town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including on the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk's office. Please be advised that the reports being considered tonight have been made available electronically. And should you wish to receive notification of the decisions of tonight's meeting, we just ask that you contact the Town of Aurora Planning Department, and owners and agents will automatically be notified. So this is for members of the public. Please ensure that all questions and or comments are directed through me as the chair, and if relevant, I will request the appropriate person respond. It should be noted that the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to any question or comments should the committee feel it is appropriate. So we'll move to the meeting agenda. So this is a meeting of June 18th. The agenda has been circulated. So I'll look to a mover and a seconder for the approval of the agenda.
I move for the approval of tonight's meeting agenda, being the meeting June 18, 2020.
Thank you, Clarence. I'll look for a seconder. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second. I see everybody, the hands are up, but the mutes are on, so I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so hands have gone up. That's terrific. Thank you very much. I will ask if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof.
Nay.
And seeing Clarence, I don't know if you're there, but seeing none, thank you very much. I'll look for a adoption of the minutes, and this is the committee of adjustment minutes of March the 12th, meeting number 20-03. So I'll look for someone to recommend adoption.
I'll adopt, I make a motion to adopt the minutes as June, what was it? Sorry, March
March 12th.
12th, 2020 meeting.
Thank you very much. Seconder.
I will second.
Terrific. Thank you, Stephen. And all in favor of that? Show of hands is probably just as easy. Thank you very much. Okay. So we move to 4 and presentation of the applications. So the first application that we have this evening is minor variance 2020-07. This is for 26 Cousins Drive. The applicant is requesting relief from the requirements of the town zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended to permit a new detached garage and widening of the driveway. Section 5.6.1a allows a maximum driveway width of 6 meters if the lot frontage is greater or equal to 9 meters and less than 18 meters. The applicant is proposing a driveway width of 7.32 meters. Section 24.497.8 permits a maximum gross floor area of 40 square meters for any accessory detached structure. The applicant is proposing a detached garage with a gross floor area of 58 square meters. We have circulated this application and comments received are as follows. Building Division preliminary zoning review conducted to confirm the variances required for the proposed work. Engineering services, no concerns with the proposed minor variance. Operational services, an arborist report will be required as a condition of approval to assess the impact on existing vegetation and explore appropriate, I believe it's mitigation measures. The owner will be required to provide tree compensation and or replanting for any tree removal in accordance with the town's policy. Electric utilities, no concerns with the proposed minor variance. Central York Fire Services, no comments were provided at the time of the writing of the report. Legal Services and York Region, no concerns with the proposed minor variance. Is the applicant or agent with us this evening? Good evening, sir, and welcome.
Thank you.
So I will look to you if you wish to provide us with any additional information that was contained in our package and the application, or any presentation you would like to make.
Yes, I had sent in a video presentation that my grade 11er and I put together for you all. So you could have a, I don't know, maybe greater appreciation of the care we went to in renovating our home initially and how we want to do the same in altering our existing garage.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
They said they would provide. It's asking you to.
You guys are playing it on your end, right? Not me.
That I do not have.
That.
Samantha, yes, Prashanti, I think, is queuing it up right now. So if you just want to,
Okay, perfect.
she's getting that together.
Thank you, Samantha.
No.
While she's doing that, let me just ask you, might be able to save a little bit of time here. There are conditions of approval. There are approximately, well, there are 8 conditions of approval here. Have you familiarized yourself with those?
Yep, I went through and I spoke to Brashanti about them, and she explained some of the process for me yesterday to prep me through that. Yeah, we did read through them, have no issues with the arborists and having to follow up and go through all that. That makes sense. Good with that. That's why we're trying to save the tree that's on the corner of the lot, even though it's in the way, but it's, you know, it doesn't need to come down. We can work around it. So that's all good. And then the site plan is fine. She said that's part of process based on where we are in community. So if that's process, then that's process.
The other thing I will touch base with you, and I thank Steve for pointing this out. I just want to make sure that we did receive some concerns and comments from, I guess it's your neighbors, one in support of your application and one with concerns. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I saw them. One had an address, one didn't have an address, so I have no idea who the in objection is, or where they would be in proximity to us. But before I submitted, I had gone to my neighbors with the drawings in regards to the ones that are on Gurnett right beside my garage, which is falling apart. And they were quite pleased to know that it's getting replaced and it'll look presentable. And that I said I'd put a fence on the property line that could delineate the property a little bit more and clean it up on their side. And Hank and Christine, who are on Cousins, they're fine. Their garage is in their backyard, and I look at their garage because it's literally set from the back of their house back in also. They have no issues. They're fine.
Okay. So you ready there, Prashanti?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm going to press play now.
Thank you.
Good evening. We're Rob and Gwen DeWild. Welcome to 26 Cousins Drive. Back in 1995, Gwen and I looked long and hard for the perfect home. Looked in Oak Ridges, looked in Aurora, looked in Newmarket, looked in Richmond Hill, but finally found this home sitting at 26 Cousins Drive. We had always had a dream of moving into a century home, but after testing the market in 2002, we realized we were staying where we were. This image is the concept drawing of our new home.
In 2003, we started the renovation to create our century-style home that fits in the neighborhood.
This is our home today. Renovations are all done. We love our house. We love living in Aurora, and we love the attention to detail that has been incorporated into our home. So after 15 years of procrastination, we were finally ready to build a garage last year when we discovered all the rules have changed. This is our existing garage. What are we proposing? The next 3 images are pictures of garages that we felt fit well into the stable neighborhood and went well with our current home. But in keeping with the new guidelines with stable neighborhood, none of those designs will work. We've considered putting the garage on the back of the house. This allows us to achieve the size we want while adding extra square footage like a master suite above the garage. We decided not to go this route as felt it was a greater evil to the community by blocking Hank and Christine's sunlight in late afternoon and having a monstrosity visible from the street that others in the neighborhood continue to build. This image is the current inspiration for the proposed garage. There's some key elements found in this design that help it conform to the stable neighborhood. It allows us to conform to the height restrictions while maintaining a visually appealing facade. It allows for architectural detail that will make the garage stand out. combining multiple exterior finishes, helping it to blend into neighborhood as if the structure has existed since the 30s or 40s. The proposed size of garage is based on a need for our vehicles. The plan is for my work truck to go in one bay while installing a vehicle lift in the other bay closest to the house. This will allow us finally to have both of our classic cars, a 1965 Chevy Nova and a 1998 Mustang Cobra convertible, to be present at home in our garage for use. Reducing the width of the proposed garage will not allow us to install a vehicle lift to accommodate both cars. This request will help us to take our very ordinary garage and help make it extraordinary. Thank you for your time.
Okay, first of all, let me congratulate you and your daughter who put this together. That's very well done. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
All right, did you want to add anything further to that?
No, not really. It's one of these things where you live in community so long and you're initially when you move in, you're maxed out, right? And then as properties increase in value, your wealth is your asset. But then as neighborhood changes and land values and stuff change, it still is cost prohibitive doing a garage, and it takes some time. And then you finally get to a point where you can, and then you find out you can't. So it's been a pretty frustrating 18 months, but it's my own fault. We don't get the Aurora and I haven't been paying attention to what's going on. And I was like, okay, so yeah, we'd be excited to be able to present or to build the garage. It's what I do. So.
All right, thank you very much. So let me go to Samantha. Samantha, other than the comments that we have received electronically, is there anyone from the public who is in the room that wants to address the committee?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do not believe so.
Okay. So let me then look to members of the committee for any comments or questions to the applicant. Let me just run through. Steve, have you got anything?
Yeah, I guess, you know, I do have one question. You know, it's regarding the location and the proposal in terms of the driveway. You mentioned the garage, the side of the garage that's closest to the house is going to house your classic cars and is going to have the lift installed, correct?
Right.
And you know, I've noticed in looking at the property, and we've noticed that, you know, that maple makes it very difficult to would make it difficult to access that side of the garage. Do you have any concerns? And I know you've referenced that you're looking to maintain that maple tree,
Yeah.
right? And so how would access be granted to that bay? And how often, I guess, would you be looking to move those cars?
The garage door width is 9 feet. At present, I can manipulate my truck, which is 21 feet long, around the maple and down beside the garage. And my truck's not going there, and the cars are much shorter than my truck. So with a 9-foot door and the lift being at the front of the garage, by the time it's down and I'm coming out, I'm already on an angle. So it's not a concern. In my world, it's not a concern. I don't see a problem. If it was, it would be a problem for me to put my truck on that side of the garage because I don't think I'd have enough swing. But at present, that's where I park my truck.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. That's all for me.
Thank you. Let me go to Michelle.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, along with Steve, you know, I have sort of a work, the design is beautiful and I loved your video. So it almost brought me to tears. So that being said, I'm just worried about the tree, like with construction and digging and getting in there to demolish and build. You know, that could be just one big oops and that tree's gone. And then you can really have that whole area wide open.
Yeah, not the intent, not the intention. The tree is far enough away from the existing structure that I personally don't think that's the tree I have to worry about. I have a sucker tree that's sitting in the fence, growing through the fence behind the garage. That is more of a concern rather than the one that's on the property line that we keep speaking about. I know when the Amars were living next door, their dude trimmed off a couple of the limbs off our tree that were over top of our driveway to allow for their canopy on their two big trees to expand. So my tree looks a little odd on one side because they trimmed it back. But no, the driveway isn't coming up to do the excavation for the garage. So I'll end up pulling up maybe 3 feet of the interlock, 4 feet of the interlock. So we're not planning on getting anywhere near the tree.
Okay,
Now,
and then through you, Mr. Chair, is there any option to angle the garage slightly so that it's easier to kind of get in and build? And have you considered any, you know, design in that way in terms of being able to get in and out a little bit easier around that tree?
The current in and out is the easiest in and out. The garage currently is on an angle to the property line at the back of the property. For, like I said, for my wife's car, for my daughter's car, for my Jetta, I don't, even if the garage is there, I can literally drive in as if it were a street and drive straight into the backyard. Even with the new existing garage, I partitioned off the front to see what is flexibility for parking and stuff and access. And even though it doesn't look like there's a lot of room, there's a lot of room, especially coming out of the garage with a 9-foot width. The other part of construction in the garage is I'm going clear span. So there will be no main beam. So I will not have posts. So I do have the flexibility of manipulating the lift inside to put it on an angle.
Mm-hmm.
Run into problems that I can't make the corner. So I have to think of everything in regards to that. So
okay, thank you. That's what I had. Thanks, Tom.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Clarence, any comments or questions to the applicant?
No, none from my end. Thank you.
And let me go then to Danielle. Anything, Danielle?
Through the chair, the only comment I have or question I have is in regards to the letter of opposition received by Terry Miller. The main question I have is regarding the summary where I believe the gentleman's name is Terry, that's how it's signed. A concern regarding the extra space resulting in additional storage of things such as trailers, equipment, extra vehicles, etc., on the new larger surface available. Is that can you address in terms of concerns? Is that something that you normally store on your property, or is that just an assumption on this individual's part that could become an issue, but with no history of such usage?
I have a Sea-Doo that's on a trailer that is beside the way. And I've been restoring a 1976 Trillium fiberglass trailer that is 900 pounds that we can tour wherever we want once we get to that point. So I've been working on that for 4 or 5 years, and it sits there. I've got a cover for it that zips up, that's presentable, it's not junky. And instead of leaving my car, so I have a pickup truck, I have a Jetta that I drive, a diesel Jetta. And instead of leaving the Jetta on the road because it gets in the way, yeah, I have it parked right beside the driveway. So it's out of the way instead of constantly putting it on the road, back on the driveway, or like the neighbors leaving, 3 of their 5 cars on the road constantly. I choose not to just to park it like he would say, oh, and a car on the lawn.
So by my extreme interpretation regarding it just becoming a storage, an extra storage space does not seem to be a reality. So I'm good.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, my only question was, you've got two vehicles that you are going to stack, if you will, inside. Are they on the property now? I don't recall seeing those there.
No, I have my Mustang in my sister's garage, and she is moving into a retirement community in February or March. So there's some urgency to get it out of her garage. And then the Chevy 2 is sitting in the garage. So it's lived in the garage since we moved here. So I've had the car since 1987. I've had the car a very long time.
So the Chevy is in the existing garage that's there now?
Correct.
Okay. All right, that answers my question there, because yeah, I would agree that with Daniel's comment, there were a number of other vehicles, on the property, throughout the property, and I was curious as to what the end result would be following the construction of this new the new garage. I think that unless anyone has anything further, I'll look to the committee then for a motion on this application. Stephen, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve minor variance application 2020-07, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Principally, I would note that the application will be subject to site plan review, I believe, as part of the stable neighborhoods. And I assume you're aware of that and the process that follows. And that's my motion.
Thank you very much. I'll look to the committee to second the motion. Thank you, Michelle.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Thank you very much. So I will call the question. All in favor? And I see all hands up. Thank you very much. So that carries. Thank you, sir. Well, and again, congratulations on that video. It was excellent.
That's great. Thanks so much.
I'll also compliment you on your choice of classic cars. I have a Mustang myself, so.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for all you do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're moving to item 2. Pardon me. This is minor variance 2020-08 at 77 Kennedy Street West. And this is application. The owner is requesting relief from the requirements of the Town of Aurora Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw number 6000-17 as amended to widen a driveway for a new single detached dwelling. Following relief is being requested in a section 5.6.1 subparagraph A III allows a maximum driveway width of 10.0 meters if the lot frontage is 18.0 meters or greater, with the exception that the maximum driveway width at the street line shall not exceed 6 meters. The applicant is proposing a driveway width of 14.45 meters. And looking at departments and agencies, circulation and comments. Building division, a preliminary zoning review was completed for the minor variance. The revised site plan was circulated to the building division for comment. It was confirmed that a minor variance does not need to be changed as a result of shifting the location of the parking spaces out of the easement. I'm not sure what the implications of that easement are. However, it does not appear that that is a consideration. Engineering division, no concerns with the proposed minor variance. Operational services division, There are trees situated on the subject property and or property line that may be impacted by excavation or disturbance due to construction. This may result in irreparable damage to the root system and or canopy to one or more of these trees. Furthermore, it may be necessary to remove some of the trees for the proposed construction. The conditions outlined in Appendix A are recommended in the event that this application is approved. The conditions require an evaluation report to be prepared, including a construction monitoring schedule, vegetation compensation to be paid if required, and compliance with the town's tree permit bylaw. Central York Fire Services, no comments provided. Legal Services and the Region Municipality of York, no comments on the proposed minor variance. Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. In a letter dated June the 10th, 2020, the comments were as follows. Consistency with section 3.1 of the PPS has been demonstrated, that the provision for a minimum 10-meter buffer from the development to the drip line of the significant woodland feature will demonstrate that the proposal is consistent in conformity with the natural heritage and natural hazard policies of the province, region, and local plans. The LSRCA recommends approval of this application for minor variance subject to the conditions outlined in Schedule A. Electra Utilities has no objections to the proposed minor variance subject to their comments. I will not read them all. And that, I believe, is all of the comments that we have on this particular application. Is the owner or applicant here this evening?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is Samantha. He's just joining he's just joining the meeting right now. He's being admitted as we speak. There he is.
Thank you very much. Good evening, sir, and welcome to the meeting. So I'm sure you've just heard me run through the application and what you are requesting. Is there a presentation or any comments that you would like to add?
This is a straightforward application, essentially. The reason we're asking for the variance is it is a rather large lot. And essentially what we're looking for, of course, is the driveway width, I believe, of 14.45 meters, which is the area right in front of the garage. By the materials and the plans that were submitted with the application, you can see that the most part of the driveway was existing with the previous house. However, right in front of the garage, it is a 3-car garage. The size of the garage spaces are actually larger than typical. The garage doors are spread a little more than typical. And as a result, right in front of the garage, it spreads to 14.45 meters to basically easily meet the access requirements for the 3-car garage. As well, per the comments, there's also 2 parking spaces that have been added. We're not asking necessarily for a variance for those, but Catherine noted in the comments essentially that we will move those out of the easement. All the trees on the, I believe it's the east side of the property, will be maintained. I think there was an issue from the neighbor asking about that. So yes, all the trees along the property line will be maintained. And other than that, I think it's a straightforward variance request. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. So I will go back through Samantha and ask if there are any members of the public who requested to join this electronic meeting.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no delegates that will be speaking on this meeting.
Thank you very much. Seeing that there are no delegates, I'll go through members of the committee and see if there are any questions or comments that they wish to make. Let's perhaps start this time with Daniel.
Through the chair, no questions at this time.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Clarence, anything on this application?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No question.
Thank you very much. Michelle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
And finally, Stephen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I just want to make sure that the applicant has reviewed the staff report and is aware of the conditions that were outlined on the in the staff recommendation.
Yes, I have reviewed the conditions. We have no objection.
Perfect. Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, so from my perspective, I'm fine with this application. I have no questions or comments to offer at this time as well. So I'll look to the committee for a motion on this application.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Daniel. Yeah, go right ahead.
Through the chair, I move that that we approve MV 2020-08 with the conditions as outlined, be maintained. Yes.
And is there a seconder for that? Stephen, thank you very much. I'll call the question. All in favor? I see lots of hands. So that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, sir, for your time. And
Thank you.
Have approval from this committee. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. You too.
Thank you. All right. So continuing on here, let's look at the next application is file MV 2020-09. There are related files, SP 2018-05 and C 2020-01, which I believe this committee has seen. This is at 1623 Wellington Street East, Smart Centers. And this application is requesting relief from the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended to accommodate a commercial retail development that previously received site plan approval and consists of 4 separate retail buildings totaling 11,171.13 square meters in gross floor area and includes 513 parking spaces. The following relief from the requirements of the town zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended is requesting A, section 24.398.4A permits a maximum gross leasable floor area of 2,000 square meters for 4 retail units. The applicant is proposing a gross leasable floor area of 2,554.75 square meters for unit A1, and B, section 5.5.4D states that the driveways shall not exceed 2 in number and shall be a width of 7.5 meters at both street line and edge of pavement. The applicant is proposing 2 driveways having a width of 16.58 meters and 22.12 meters respectively. And looking at departments and agencies circulated, coming up here. All right, engineering services, no concerns with the proposed minor variance. Accessibility advisor, no concerns with the proposed minor variance. Traffic analyst, no concern with the proposed minor variances. Operational services and parks division, no concerns. Central York Fire Services, no comments provided at the time of writing this report. I wish they had. Legal Services, no concerns with the proposed minor variances. Regional Municipality of York, no concerns with the proposed minor variance. Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, no comments provided at the time of writing this report. Electric Utilities reviewed the proposed variances and have no objections to the report. And I guess I should have been careful when I said Central York Fire Services. There is a site plan that has been reviewed, and I would assume they have had a chance to look at this. So let me look to the applicant. Good evening, sir, and welcome.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chair. My name's Stephanie Bacani, and I'll actually be presenting.
I didn't see the two faces popping up. My apologies.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Stephanie Bacani, and I'm a registered professional planner and a development associate at Smart Centers. I'm joined tonight by Mr. Nicholas Papapetru, Senior Development Manager at Smart Centers. We're here tonight to present a minor variance application for 1623 Wellington Street East in Aurora. I believe Brashanti also has our presentation, so just pull it up. Thank you. Next slide, please. So the property is located on the south side of Wellington Street East, immediately west of Highway 404. The entire property is 32 acres in size. The west block comprises approximately 12.28 acres of the site. The variances that I will be presenting tonight only apply to the west block. Next slide, please. Smart Centers currently has an active site plan application to construct approximately 11,200 square meters of retail commercial space on the west block. We are currently in the final stages of our site plan application, and the Town of Aurora Engineering has signed off. While the site plan approval is for the entire block, we are only proceeding with the construction of Farm Boy and the HomeSense Marshalls at this time, which are identified as units A1 and A2 on the site plan. The first variance is for an increase to retail store gross leasable floor area restrictions for Farm Boy. The second variance is for an increase to maximum driveway width for both proposed driveways along the Golding Avenue extension. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the first variance is to request a gross leasable floor area of 2,554.75 square meters for Farm Boy, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum gross leasable floor area of 2,500 square meters for 4 retail units. As such, the requested increase is only for an additional 54.75 square meters above the bylaw requirement. We note that the staff report indicates a size of 2,554.75 square meters. However, we ask the committee tonight to consider approving 2,554 square meters to allow for flexibility. The approximate gross leasable floor area attributed to the actual retail space is 2,323.5 square meters, which is within the maximum bylaw requirement. A second-story mezzanine space with a gross floor area of 232.25 square meters results in the floor area exceeding the store size restriction. The proposed mezzanine will not be used for retail space. It will accommodate office space, cafe seating, and washrooms for staff, which is an integral part of the operations of this retail store. The variance will allow for the implementation of this retail store use, which is a permitted use within the business park designation. The intent of the zoning bylaws maximum gross leasable floor area requirement is to ensure the proposed retail spaces are appropriate for market demands and do not result on adverse impacts on the retail landscape. Given that the intent of the restriction is to limit the amount of retail space, the requested variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, which is resultant as a requested increase is resultant of the proposed mezzanine space where goods will not be sold. Finally, the requested variance is minor in nature and will not have any adverse impacts to the adjacent properties. Next slide, please. The second requested variance is to request a driveway width of 16.58 meters and 22.12 meters, whereas the maximum permitted driveway width in the bylaw is 7.5 meters. Driveway 1 is the northern driveway between buildings B and D and is 16.58 meters in width. Driveway 2 is the southern driveway. It is south of building B and is 22.12 meters in width. This driveway was designed to provide adequate delivery truck movements to access the loading area from the street. Each driveway has 1 ingress lane and 2 egress lanes. The proposed land configuration and width satisfy the Transportation Association of Canada's geometric design guidelines. We require these variances to accommodate forecasted vehicular movements on the site and access to loading areas for trucks, which are required for the function of the proposed development. The requested variances allow for safe and efficient inbound and outbound traffic movements. These proposed widths are typical for commercial developments of the size in Aurora, including our retail center to the north of Wellington Street. The proposed driveway widths result in no adverse impact to the adjacent properties or the municipal roadways. We are of the opinion that both variances meet all 4 tests within the Planning Act. We've also read the town staff report and are in agreement with the staff's position. Next slide, please. Finally, just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee for your time. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have on our minor variance application.
Thank you very much. Nick, did you want to add anything there to the presentation?
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to clarify, I think at the beginning of the presentation, Stephanie mentioned that we were asking the committee to consider a minor adjustment to the floor space variance. It's actually for 2,555 square meters, not 2,554. So the actual mezzanine is 2,554.75, and we're just asking to round it up just a bit to protect us should something change through the detailed design of the building.
Let me ask you, are you confident that that is that margin, it's only 0.25 square meters. Are you comfortable that that will cover it?
I think so, yes.
Okay. All right, yeah, I was going to come back to that because I noted that there was a bit of a difference in the number that Stephanie was referring to there and on our staff report. All right, let me just before we go any further ask if there are any members of the public who requested time this evening with our conference, Samantha.
For you, Mr. Chair, there are no live delegates for this application either.
Thank you very much. So with that, I'm going to go to members of the committee if they have any questions. So let's start this time with Michelle.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the only question I had is there's one condition that has been outlined in the staff report. Are you okay with that condition?
To the applicant, Stephanie,
Yeah.
maybe just a comment there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're happy with that condition.
Okay. Other than that, no further questions.
Thank you. Stephen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions. Thank you.
Let me go to Clarence.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
And Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
Terrific. To staff, to Matthew, there was a site plan application processed. Were these, was the site plan initially showing these driveway widths? And I noticed that, and I'm curious as to whether or not they were reviewed without the dimensions that we are looking at this evening. And was it circulated to Central York Fire Services? I'm just curious there on the circulation.
Through the chair, I will have to defer to the applicant on the original submission for the site plan. Mr. Pepetra or Ms. Bacani may be more suited to answer that. I'm sure that's easily confirmed. In terms of whether or not it has been circulated to Central York Fire Services, it's typical to, even from the beginning of an application, they are required to be circulated under the Act, and they would have been circulated on this application as well.
So maybe the applicant on that site plan, the original site plan, was it the numbers that we're looking at this evening, or was it in conformity with the regulations at the time? Perhaps Stephanie?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will defer to Nick on this one. I think he originally submitted the site plan application.
Thank you for the question. So yes, the driveway widths have always been this size, and Stephanie mentioned we're at the very tail end of our approval process with the city. So York Region Fire and Transportation Services have seen this site plan with these driveway widths, and it's very typical of other shopping centers, even to the north of us, our existing shopping center. It's just the size that's needed for 2 inbound lanes and 1 outbound lane, which is very typical of a shopping center of this size. So this site plan that's for the committee was submitted to staff, and we waited till the end to confirm all the variances that were required. So everybody has seen this.
Okay, thank you. Again, just to Matthew there, I noticed this appears first time on our list of comments. Accessibility advisor and traffic analyst, are these new functions that we are seeing here, or?
Through the chair, they are not new functions. They both have been in roles with the town for a significant amount of time. Because of the ICI, industrial, commercial, institutional nature of this application, that's why I imagine the accessibility advisor was circulated. As for the traffic analysts, they are circulated because of the nature of the traffic and inbound and egress ingress for the site. So it's his area of expertise. So that's why they were circulated.
Okay, excellent. Nice to see that there's comments there and that they don't have any concerns. All right, I'll look to them. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just point of clarity, because I believe the initial presentation was 1 ingress and 2 egress, and I believe I just heard the opposite. I believe it's 1 ingress and 2 egress, right? Is that what we're looking for? Just for clarity, if anyone is reviewing the video, if we could just get clarity.
My apology. I think it's my apology. Two egress, 2 exit lanes, and 1 inbound lane. Is that what's? Perfect. My apologies. Yeah.
Yep. Sounds good. Thank you.
So before I actually look for a motion, I just want to make sure that there is a request here to just round that number up from 2,554.75 square meters to 2,555.00. In a motion coming forward, if we want to address that, that would be appreciated. So let me go to the committee. Oh, sorry. Yes, Matthew.
Through the chair, it is my understanding that the applicant cannot ask for an increase from what was on the notice because it does not constitute proper notice.
You're right. Correct.
So if there is an increase, as minor as it may be, because it is an increase, the public has to be notified of the extra 0.25 meters, unfortunately.
You are correct. And I should have known that. Yes, go ahead, Daniel.
Just on the higher number, on the package circulated to the team, the minor variance and permission application for subject lands, which is page 6, it states a gross floor area of 256 square meters, which is bigger than the 255 that is being requested. and bigger than the sorry, I'm skipping a number when I'm saying that, 2556, which is bigger than the 2555 that was being requested, and obviously bigger than the 2554.75.
So let me go just for 1 second, Nick. Let me go back to Matthew here. I'm looking at what's been circulated, Matthew. Let's just make sure that the staff report is one thing, but what's been circulated here?
Through the chair, it looks like the notice that went out asked for a gross leasable floor area of 2,554.75 square meters, and 2,554.75 square meters.
All right, so that is what we're dealing with. Nick, did you want to make a comment? I'll allow that.
We'll work within that size. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'll look then for a motion on this application. Steve? Yeah.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve minor variance application 2020-09 and related files SP 2018-05 and C 220-01, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for that motion? Clarence, thank you very much. I'll call the question. All of those in favor? And I see all hands up. That carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To the applicants. Have yourself a very good evening.
Same to you.
Thank you. All right. The next application this evening is minor variance 2020-10, and this is for 108 to 170 Hollidge Boulevard for Hollidge Properties Incorporated. This application is as follows. The owner is requesting relief from the requirements of the Town of Aurora Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 6000-17 as amended to permit a restaurant use on the subject lands. A section 24.187.1 permits a maximum of one restaurant, drive-through special. The applicant is proposing a restaurant as a permitted use. And comments from other departments are as follows. Building Division, preliminary zoning review was completed. Engineering Division and Operational Services Division, no concerns with the proposed application. Accessibility Advisor, no concerns with the proposed application. Central York Fire Services, no comments received at the time of the writing of the report. Legal Services, no concerns. Regional Municipality of York, no concerns with the proposed application. And Electric Utilities, no objection to the approval of the application. So I will ask if the applicant is with us this evening. So we'll just wait. Julian, your audio is not up as yet. And we're waiting for, I believe, David Stewart to join. So Julian, if you can hear me, we're just waiting for David to join, and we're waiting for your audio to connect.
I think we might be okay now.
Yes, is David Stewart with us? So I see his name coming up here. I'm just waiting for his audio and visual there.
Sorry, it's a bit of a learning curve for us.
That's all right. Not a problem.
You guys have been very smooth so far.
Oh, thank you very much.
We're not going to be making specifically a presentation. We can talk about the application a little bit, or if you'd like, we can wait till the address comments and concerns, or do both.
So if there is anything that you want to speak to now, my understanding is that there are a number of residents who have made comments that we have seen electronically as part of our package. And I believe that there are some that will be making presentations, Julian. So perhaps if you do want to make any comments, and I see David has now almost made it through here. Presentations, Julian. So perhaps
David, there may be a button at the bottom corner that says join audio.
Almost made it through here.
I think I'm here now. Am I?
Yes.
All right, welcome.
Thank you.
So David, for your benefit, I'll come right to you, Steve, in a second. David, for your benefit, so Julian has joined, and we're asking if there's any presentation that he would like to make, and I'll leave that door open for you momentarily. Stephen, I thought I saw your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that I believe I'm hearing in the background some feedback. So if somebody's listening on the YouTube feed, you may want to disconnect from the YouTube feed if you're one of the people.
Guilty.
Here.
Yeah. Guilty. I shut that off. That was me.
That happened to me as well.
I would like to make some comments if that's okay at this point.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we are talking tonight about a commercial plaza in the Bayview Wellington community. Just as a little bit of background, I was involved back in 1991 when we first acquired this property and we first thought about the Bayview Wellington community. And I think that since that time, we can all agree it's a wonderful community. It's something that we should all be proud of. I know there's a lot of people are there that call it home, and I believe I can see pride of ownership through the community. The application before us tonight concerns a commercial plaza, which was part of that original concept plan, and it's there today. The request is to help this plaza, which has been suffering for quite a long time. The plaza has been suffering with a lot of turnover, a lot of vacancies. Right now, we're sitting with 4 vacancies, which is not sustainable, unfortunately. But one thing that has been consistent throughout the history of this plaza is inquiries from restaurants wanting to open a restaurant. The existing zoning allows for 1 restaurant drive-through, which is operating now as the Tim Hortons. The request is to allow for a 2nd restaurant, but not a drive-through. This would be a takeout style small restaurant. As one of the conditions of the approval is it's limited to the number is 136 square meters, just under 1,500 square feet. So we're talking about a very small type restaurant.
And Dave, if I could just speak on your point there, just to give some context there. The reason for this size maximum and why we've pursued it this way, and sort of maybe how we've been thoughtful in what we're looking to do here is we've really looked at the maximum size that a restaurant really could be without causing any issues with the zoning bylaw and the parking rates that are required on the subject site. And I think that was a deliberate intent because we've seen and heard concerns for parking and traffic type issues here. And I think it's been a thoughtful effort on our behalf to undertake it with that and limit it to 1 max restaurant use rather than a blanket permission for the site here.
Yeah, very, very good point. We have read the staff report. I felt the staff report was extremely well written and very well reasoned, very clear that this application meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. It is consistent with the intent of the official plan, with the intent of the zoning. It is minor because restaurants are not foreign to the site. We already have one. And restaurants are not foreign to this type of commercial center. It's very common to see several restaurants in a center such as this. And we're limiting to 1 drive-through and 1 restaurant. And is it desirable? Yes, it is desirable because, as I said, this plaza, it does serve the community, and it has been suffering, and it does need help. It needs this to help stimulate more activity at the center. We're asking for no other variances. We're consistent with parking, and there were no concerns raised by any of the agencies and departments that were circulated the application. So with that, we will leave it at that for your consideration, and we certainly hope that you will look favorably upon our application.
Thank you, gentlemen. And yes, I want to make sure that that you have both received what we as a committee have received. We've been getting throughout the course of the day copies of emails and letters of concern. So either David or Julian, just a quick nod just to let us know that you have seen those.
Yes, we have seen those.
Okay.
We've received 2 separate PDFs with the correspondence.
All right. Matthew, just a quick note to Matthew there. Just we're sure that everything that we have received, they have received as well, correct?
Through the chair, yes, I've seen email correspondence from our secretary treasurer to the applicant.
Thank you very much. All right, so let me then go to Samantha and ask, is there anyone from the public who wants to address the committee?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Samantha will be admitting some delegates one by one. So I believe first up we have Tanya.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, Tanya, we are waiting for, we can hear you, but we cannot see you yet. And there you are. Good evening, welcome to the committee, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank
you. You have, by the way, I just want to remind everyone speaking tonight, you have 5 minutes, and I'll ask if we can, I understand there are a number of you, if we can avoid duplicating the same comments as we've seen them in the emails and what have you. A lot of the issues are common to a number of you. So go ahead, Tanya, and we'll give you your 5 minutes there.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. My name is Tanya Yonker, and I am the owner and occupant of 22 Baywell Crescent. I did have some of my own comments originally, but in speaking with my neighbor, Julie Milani, and in light of the staff report that we saw, I did feel it was important to have read into the record her letter. So I am choosing to use my 5 minutes to do so with her permission. So this is her letter. Good evening, Committee of Adjustment members and Brashanthi. Due to a previous commitment, my husband Sean and I are not able to attend tonight's Committee of Adjustment meeting, but we would like to take this opportunity to submit our formal objection to minor variance application MV 2020-10 by Hollidge Properties, Inc. for the plaza located at 108 to 170 Hollidge Boulevard. My husband and I reside at 14 Baywell Crescent, and we have lived here for almost 20 years. We started out at Baywell Crescent as a newly married couple and are now raising our 2 daughters here. This area has been a wonderful place to live and an amazing place for our children to grow up. We very much enjoy living here. With one major exception, we have been forced to fight the owner's applications to permit restaurants in the plaza located at 108-170 Hollidge Boulevard on 2 previous occasions. This has caused great stress and agitation to my family and me on these occasions, and we have just been made aware that we now have to fight the property owner again for the 3rd time since we have lived here. Nuisance. We do not want to be assaulted on a daily basis by the smells that are generated by restaurants. My husband, Sean, is a fully licensed sheet metal mechanic who works every day in the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning trade, and has stated in his professional opinion that there are no ventilation systems in existence that can eliminate all the smells, malodorous or not, that result from restaurants. The simple action of opening and closing the front and back doors of the restaurant will release smells from the establishment. We do not want to be subjected to these smells for the rest of our lives at our home. We want to be able to have our windows open and smell fresh air, not the unpleasant byproduct smells that restaurants cause. Case in point, have you walked by the St. Louis Bar and Grill at 444 Holland View Trail? The smell of deep fried foods is nauseating. We do not want to have to live with smells like that day in, day out. If restaurants were added as a permitted use to the plaza in question, there's absolutely no way that anyone can guarantee that we will not be subjected to such smells. The only way that this can be guaranteed is not to allow restaurants as a permitted use at 108-170 Hollidge Boulevard. Additionally, please note that there is absolutely no buffering between the plaza and the homes that are located directly along the northern boundary of the plaza, save and except a single line of trees. These trees are merely a minor visual barrier and offer absolutely no protection from obnoxious or nuisance smells. Because of all this, this minor variance application cannot be considered to be desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, buildings, or structures, and therefore does not meet the criteria of the 4 tests. History. As mentioned above, this property has been the subject of 2 previous zoning bylaw amendment applications, both of which were refused by council. This was not addressed at all in the Committee of Adjustment staff report prepared by Matthew Pivarini on June 15, 2020. The first application was in 2003 when Bayview Business Park, the plaza owner, submitted an application to amend the Town of Aurora zoning bylaw to rezone the subject lands to permit, among other things, restaurants which included takeout restaurants and drive-through restaurants as permitted uses. The residents of Baywell Crescent formed the Chapman Park Community Ratepayers Association, and we opposed this application. Council refused the application, and the plaza owner appealed the decision to the OMB. Through board-ordered mediation between the town, the landowner, and the CPCRA, the Ratepayers Association, an agreement was reached that created a revised proposal that included, and I'm going to paraphrase a bit here, restaurant uses with a drive-through was limited to 1, additional bylaw provisions that prohibited a bake shop, no drive-through associated with financial institutions, and there were specific restrictions on the height and all setbacks for the restaurant use. These are all referenced from the Town of Aurora Planning Report number PL09-053, pages 2 to 3. This new proposal was approved by the OMB, and we, the residents, were happy with this revised plan. Then in 2009, Hollidge Properties Inc. submitted another application for a zoning bylaw amendment to allow additional restaurants to be permitted in the plaza being discussed. Residents of the Baywell Crescent community banded together to once again fight this application. On June 24, 2009, council refused this application.
Tanya, let me just hold you there for a second. Is there very much more to add?
I've got what, about 30 seconds left?
30 seconds, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Now, Hollidge Properties Inc. is trying to circumvent council's decision by trying to get a new answer using the Committee of Adjustment. And here we have to fight yet another application by Hollidge Properties to allow restaurants as a permitted use on this property. And it just goes on to say that, again, Julie and Sean Mullaney, they vehemently oppose this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I'm going to ask the applicant. So there are other folks. Do you want to just make notes and we'll go through all of the comments coming forward? Or would you prefer to address the comments that have been brought forward by this individual?
If I may, perhaps if we can address some of the comments previously or prior to hearing some more, perhaps we can clarify some of the issues or at least give our sort of opinion. So maybe it's easier to not be replicated, because we have heard the concerns on noise and odor and willing to sort of address that a little bit. If now is the appropriate time.
We could do it that way. I don't mind if you want to address it, because obviously it would be good feedback while Tanya is there, that she'd be able to take that back to her neighbors there. So go ahead then.
So Tanya, thank you for your comments, and we appreciate you coming here and all the residents who have shared their concerns. We've personally read all the email chains and we are aware of the history. I obviously was not part of the previous applications dating back many years ago. But I think I want to address sort of the general comment, sort of with a couple different subpoints. I think firstly, I like to say that, we understand where the residents of the adjacent community are coming from. And we appreciate them coming to speak forward about this. I think our vision for a restaurant here is not to have the entire plaza disrupting their lifestyle, and we can sincerely appreciate that they have concerns with that. So in our conversations, we had talked about the possibility of this restaurant more likely to be taking on a takeout type format. However, we recognize there are a lot of concerns about odor. And I think there's a willingness on the applicant's point of view to find a tenant. We're only speaking about one particular use on the whole subject site that will have a limited amount of odors, perhaps fresh foods, perhaps health foods, something more along that line, whether that's booster juice through Freshly, etc. I think there's an openness on the applicant's part to consider the intentions of the owners here, and we appreciate their rights to be speaking about the application. We do, however, think this represents good planning, and we do sincerely believe it meets the 4 tests. The plaza on the north side of this community in question is the same land use designation in the OP and has a numerous amount of restaurants, maybe 5 or 6. There is a little bit more of a buffer there. So we appreciate the circumstances we're referring to here. But I think there's a willingness on the applicant's point of view to work with the community a little bit here. And we appreciate it. And Tanya, I just want to be candid with you. A lot has changed over the years. And we currently have 4 vacancies in the plaza and numerous requests for restaurant use. Specifically with COVID and sort of the high level of stress we're all dealing with right now. A lot of commercial tenants are also dealing with that. I think we want to be careful about restricting any sort of entrepreneurial activity that could be beneficial for the community. I don't think anybody here would be opposed if we were able to find a tenant that wasn't creating issues that the community is facing. So I just wanted to put that more bluntly than and speak in plain English rather than speak necessarily for planning. And I'll leave it for David as well if he wants to comment on that as well. But I just wanted to make sure that was heard before we heard, because this was mentioned as a fight, and I don't think we're here to fight. We're here to seek a permission for restaurant use.
David?
I think Julian has said it very well. We are here to try and do something positive for the community. I think it is in everybody's interest that this plaza succeeds, and that's our intent. And I think Julian addressed the issues very, very well.
Thank you. So thank you, Tanya. And I'll move to the next person who would like to address the committee. Good evening. I believe it is Tina. Welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting.
Thank you.
I'll just again remind you that we are trying to avoid duplication of raising of the same issues. And you have 5 minutes, so please go ahead.
Okay, let me just shut off my YouTube here. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to repeat a lot of the things that have been said, but I'll just give you my viewpoint and omit some of the duplication. So my name is...
Yeah, your name and your address, please.
Sorry, my name is Tina Blvd. I live at 19 Baywell Crescent, and I purchased my home in 2015. When I purchased it, I was aware of the current zoning in the plaza behind me. When I was considering the purchase, I was concerned about possible future restaurant use other than the existing Tim Hortons. And I was advised that only one restaurant, specifically Tim Hortons, was permitted according to a memorandum of understanding reached between the plaza owner and the Community Ratepayers Association. I was also aware that in 2009, the owner of the plaza again sought a change in zoning to permit restaurant use, but that this attempt was also unsuccessful. So I purchased my home with peace of mind, knowing that I would not have a restaurant behind me and the issues, noise, garbage, traffic, vermin, etc., that accompany this type of use. The purpose of my delegation today is to express my objection to this application, as restaurant use is not compatible with the existing neighborhood. The requested use is not appropriate given the proximity to neighboring homes. Given the close proximity of the plaza to the homes, in particular the lots along the south side of Baywell Crescent, this proposal does not adequately protect the existing neighborhood from the negative impacts of restaurant use. Odor from food preparation, garbage, noise from patrons, noise from vehicle deliveries, loitering, vermin, and I need to specify here that large buffers between homes and plazas providing restaurant use are necessary to minimize the negative effects that a restaurant brings to neighboring homes. I'd like to give you a mental picture of how this plaza is not even close to providing an acceptable buffer. Although Aurora does not define minimum buffer requirements for restaurant use, Mississauga specifies that restaurant use is not permitted where the distance between the building and the closest residential property line is less than 60 meters. The distance between the building, the plaza building, and the residential property line in this case is 3.89 meters. That's 3.89 meters versus Mississauga's 60 meters. This is a small fraction. It shows you what a small fraction this is to be an acceptable buffer. I'm of the opinion that an additional restaurant use does not conform to the intent of the zoning bylaw. I would ask that you consider the application history for this site as well as the insufficient buffer. As you've already heard, the history associated with this application sheds light on the ongoing resident opposition to the establishment of restaurant use. And the residents' concerns have been clearly documented over the past 16 years. And as a resident living right next to this commercial plaza, I share the same concerns regarding garbage, or odor, noise, and loitering, and am of the opinion that this proposal is not appropriate in the contents of the adjacent land uses and surrounding neighborhood. Asking to permit restaurant use is a slippery slope that will allow any type of restaurant in the future. The willingness of this owner to work with residents is not a good argument. It sounds great, but they could sell this property tomorrow, or they could allow whatever restaurants in the future, one small restaurant with fresh food now. In the future, there would be nothing to stop them from allowing any kind of restaurant. With all due respect, although this current economic climate is difficult for the property owner, it is difficult for us all and should not play a part in the decision-making process this evening. I am vehemently opposed to the proposal and ask that council deny this application.
Thank you very much, and I applaud you for staying within the 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Tina.
You're welcome.
So again, I'll look at any comments coming from the applicant if they wish to make any at this time.
David, do you want to wait towards the end, or I'm not sure how many, do we know how many people are scheduled to be speaking? Can we find out?
So let me ask Samantha, do we have a number of people coming forward?
I'll be answering the question, Mr. Chair. There's 4 more people that are in the queue to express their comments.
Thank you, Prashanthi. So what I would suggest then is if there are 4, why don't we move on to them, and just to suggest maybe you just take some notes, gentlemen.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and just a one-liner, if I may, just for the next people that are about to speak. The permissions we're seeking here for one restaurant would only be for one restaurant, and any future owner, any future request by us would have to come back in front of the committee for a public process where the same level of ability to comment and speak on the matter would be available to them. So we sincerely agree that it's difficult for you, difficult for us, difficult for everybody in the world right now. So we were not suggesting that it was just difficult for us as commercial owners. And thank you also for your comments, Tina.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, I'll ask Samantha to queue up the next individual who wishes to address comments to the committee. So good evening and welcome. I believe your name is Nellie. I'll ask you to give us your name and your address. And again, I'll just remind you that we're trying to keep this to 5 minutes.
Yes.
And without repetition as much as possible. So go right ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and everyone else on the committee. Unfortunately, I've got 2 screens going, so I'll be looking at away periodically. My name is Nellie Gontier. I'm a resident and the owner of 3 Baywell Crescent, which is on the south side of Baywell, backing on to the plaza that we're speaking of, the commercial property. I just wanted to address a couple of things. I concur entirely with the community members that have spoken so far and that have sent in their emails and so on. But I want to address some of the comments that were made by our respected property managers here, or owners. They've described they propose that the restaurant will be just under 1,500 square foot. And I don't think that people realize, my family's been in the restaurant business since 1971. And I can tell you right now, based on the square footage of this proposed restaurant, you're looking at about 100 or more seats. Because obviously you have to take into consideration kitchen area, bathrooms, that sort of thing. So that's not what would be considered a small restaurant by any means. Secondly, I want to address the parking issue. And that was a message that was actually addressed in the report. It's on page 4, first paragraph. And I respectfully submit to you that that particular paragraph that states that there wouldn't be a problem with parking is in fact a little misguided. And I'll tell you why. I counted the number of parking spaces. There are 143 parking spaces in the entire plaza, plus 4 accessible parking spaces. Now, one of the issues that I have as well is that according to the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, Regulation 80.36, subsection 2.1 and 2.2, the number and type of accessible parking spaces are dictated by the number of square feet of commercial space. And in this particular case, they're not identifiable. In other words, it's hard to know whether they're type A or type B for a number of reasons: the size, the lack of signage, and the lack of what's known as the high definition diagonal lines that create the accessible space where vans can pull in the type A case, or vehicles, people that use vehicles, can get out and have ample room to move around. I submit to you, with all due respect, that this may be in violation of the Act. And according to the AODA calculation, if there are off-street parking spaces between 134 and 166, this plaza has a total of 147, they would require 3 of each type of parking space, which in this particular case, they don't exist. So that right there makes me concerned, because if we're talking about compliance and we're talking about, following regulations, and we're talking about the trust that that instills in the community, and I would hope with the town and with this committee, then that's something that leaves a lot of question. And so apart from that, I also did some research on the amount of garbage that's produced. If you have 100, let's say you have quite 100 seats, and you have a turnover of two meals per evening or per day, you're looking at a pound and a half of waste that's produced on average. And this is every paper I've looked at and every site I've looked at, which is an awful lot of garbage. And the way of looking at it, another way of looking at it, is fast food produces 200 pounds of garbage every single day per $1,000 of sales, of gross sales. So that's quite large. Getting back to the parking as well, if you want to calculate what a 1,500 square foot restaurant would require, the calculation is for every 100 square feet of commercial space that the restaurant has, you would require 1 parking spot. That would make it 14 or 15 parking spots just for that 1 unit. And based on the number of units that are already using that, I don't know that that's possible with the space that's actually there. Because it is limited, and you have to have clearances for fire trucks and other emergency vehicles if that were to happen. Right now, based on the square footage of all 4 buildings, I think the ratio for parking is 4 spaces, per 1,000 square foot. But if you take into consideration that Tim Hortons uses up at least 15 of those spaces, it actually drops to three parking spots per 1,000 square feet. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to add to everything else. I like to look at pragmatically. I like to see that there's a viable solution, and based on the numbers, it just doesn't seem to fit.
Okay,
I'd like to thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you for your presentation, and I applaud you taking the time to do some research, and obviously we are charged with looking at the application based on the zoning regulations. If there was a shortfall, for example, in parking within the zoning bylaw and the requirements of this particular application, staff would have identified that, and it would be part of the submission that would be before us. So just to let you know that we're not looking at an amendment to or a reduction to parking in this particular case, even though I appreciate the comments that you made. So thank you very much. And obviously the applicant will be speaking to some of the comments that you've made, and even members of this committee may come back on some of the comments that you've made. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll ask Brasante to bring forward the next individual, please.
Hello.
So good evening. I believe it is Wen. And can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
And I think we've got you in as well. So welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting, and we'll start with your name, address, and as I mentioned, you'll have about 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. My name is Wen Bian. I'm the resident and homeowner on 12 Baywell, and I'd like to take this opportunity to express my objection to the restaurant use in Hollidge Plaza. So the point I want to bring forward is I have done some research myself. As you can, I include all my research and links into my official letter. I just gonna give you a brief breakdown on what I found out and why I would object to a restaurant use in the plaza. So based on the information given on CDC, food odor, different people react to food odor differently, and many things can considered as odor, and that can cause headache, nausea, and respiratory issues to different individuals. With Tina's point that this plaza is only merely 9 meters away from their back door to our master bedroom window, the odor is easily expressed to our house and our room. Especially given the current COVID situation, many of us are confined to our homes. So we're looking at to spend the rest of the days, at least foreseeable future, to dealing with this odor day in and day out. And I think this is a risk to our health. And moreover, I want to bring forward the point on noise. A different study posted on the Journal of Noise and Health point out the mere 50 dB noise, constant noise, that is, will bring 12% into the nausea, headache, and the possible insomnia of the resident. 50 dB of noise, if you're not familiar with the concept, is similar to a cat that's purring next to you. With a restaurant only 9 meters away from our master bedroom window, the noise it raises will easily exceed 50 dB. And the next question, the next point I want to bring forward is with the traffic increase that the restaurant bring forward. The traffic not only bring more noise to the neighborhood, and because the parking situation, it will flood our street. A study posted on Science suggests that no amount of road safety training can help with our rate of accident or reduce the rate of accident of children. The only strong relation between kids getting into accident is the road condition. With more traffic flooding our street, we're risking our own and our children's safety because the extra traffic. So with all this point and information, I kindly ask you to consider to reject the restaurant use in the plaza. I heard the point that the owners brought forward that they will work with us and they will find the attendant with the best behavior. But I think what their argument is argue for the best case scenario, where us as residents will live through the worst consequence. That's really, I do not find that's just fair to us. That with especially with the current current outbreak, there is so many vacant lots in the surrounding plazas, not just Hollidge Plaza, and this plaza is not one well designed or well designated for a restaurant.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments, and as I mentioned to the other residents coming forward, we'll allow the applicant to address some of your concerns if they can. Mm-hmm. And thank you for your time and participating in the meeting.
Thank you.
Residents. Thank you very much. I'll ask Brisanthi if we have another individual, it looks like we do, who would like to address the committee. And do we have, oh, we're just waiting for that connection to come forward. I see Randy
Yep, you got me. Okay, good. There's so many blocks on here.
Yeah, there is now. I apologize. It's trying to keep up with everyone. So
yeah.
So thank you very much for coming, and we'll start with your name and your address, please.
Okay, my name is Randy Henderson, and I'm at 9 Baywell Crescent. Wen made a good point. I'll just launch into this, but he made a good point that we do have to live through it, and unless you currently live here, you don't know the current issues. So I've been here 13 years, and there's been constant issues that we've raised to bylaw. Bylaw is kind of hamstrung because they don't have people that can come over and deal with it at that time. We've had garbage trucks picking up garbage before 7 o'clock constantly. It was an issue before I even moved here, evidently. So we also have, from a noise standpoint, people will get their takeout, which is essentially, there's already a takeout restaurant in the plaza, that's Tim Hortons. They get their takeout, they drive to the West End and crank up their car stereos in the summer, get out, sit on the curb with their windows down. Even with all of our windows shut, we can still hear the banging of the subwoofers. And if I try and sit out there on a Sunday afternoon and enjoy it, it's, I'm dealing with somebody else's music. So I can't even read a book in peace. So those are some of the current issues. If you have a restaurant, which is open until 11 o'clock, you're going to get people, car doors slamming, people squealing away. You're going to get employees out the back doors, which other people have already said is really not very far. It's about 10 meters away. So, we spend a lot of time in our backyard. We don't want more sources of noise. The property owners have they hire people to paint the lines. They hire people to come in with their machines and blow the dirt off and clean the plaza. Invariably, those people show up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to do their work. So I understand that they'll do their best. These gentlemen will do their best, but they're not here. So unless they're here or managing their people more effectively than they have done for the past 13 years, I really don't see that the current issues surrounding noise and litter are going to get any better. With the staff report, they talked about traffic not being an issue. It's already a dangerous plaza in conjunction with the plaza across the road. So all kinds of near misses and things. A takeout restaurant lives on volume. So the business model is based on volume, like Tim Hortons is based on volume. So that's not, it's going to have to increase the volume of traffic coming through there. I guess another point I have is nothing has really changed. There's no need. There's plenty of plazas around us. And while they're looking for this 1,500 square foot restaurant salvation for their plaza, Wimpy's closed across the road, City Walk closed, Play closed, all within probably 500 to 800 meters of this plaza. So there's a lot of other things that go into the success of a plaza rather than just the zoning of one unit. And I really don't see that anything's changed or the situation's got any better. Restaurants also invariably attract pests. So it starts with mice and squirrels. Then the raccoons get into it, rats, and then the bigger animals go, okay, well, we can feed on the feeders that are feeding on the restaurant stuff. So in all those ways, it affects my quality of life, which is my primary concern. I don't want to move. I have no intention of moving, but my quality of life is diminished regularly and is going to get even worse with a restaurant going into this plaza. It's not a workable solution. There's a reason why there's a bylaw in place, and I haven't heard a compelling reason for the committee of adjustment to make that adjustment. That's about all I have to say at this point. I had two hard acts to follow, but I got in under the wire, I hope.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate your comments. We appreciate your comments and the time that you've taken to put some thought forward and express your concerns. I also appreciate that you're raising different issues that haven't been brought forward by others. So really appreciate that. Thank you. And we'll allow the applicants to again make comments once all the deputations have been made. So thank you. We'll move on to the next individual who is going to join us.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We had one last delegate, but he seems to have left a waiting room. So maybe we'll give him like another minute, but if he doesn't come to the waiting room, then I think we should just proceed.
Okay, thank you, Prashanthi. What we'll do then is we'll allow the applicant to respond to the comments that have been made by the residents. And if the other individual does come back in, maybe Prashanthi or Samantha, just pop a note up and just let us know that they're there. So I'll look to David and Julian if you want to go ahead.
Julian, would you like me to lead off? And
yeah, if you'd like and are willing, please do, and then I can make a few comments sort of after David's spoken as well.
Yeah, I've made quite a few notes here and certainly fill in where I leave a blank. The comment was made that there have been previous applications requesting a restaurant, and that's true. Obviously, that's true. I think the last one was 11 years ago, 2009. You know, even official plans are reviewed every 5 years. But that really speaks to the fact that we are constantly being requested for a restaurant use. It happens. It's the only use that we believe is lacking. We've had a lot of turnover at this particular plaza, and there has been no, I guess, lack of interest for a restaurant use, and that's why we're being persistent in requesting that particular use. There were comments about parking and the accessible parking spaces in particular, and we definitely will look into that. I know that this particular plaza was done several years ago, and it was built to the standard of the day. But we'll certainly look into that and make sure, regardless of how things go tonight, that's something that we would have to look into. And there were talk about noise. We are required to meet the MOE standard for noise, and that is something that the MOE will regulate, and the municipality will regulate, and we have that on all projects that we work on. That's a requirement that we have to satisfy. The traffic and I guess the plaza across the street, and I guess the point was made that the traffic is dangerous. I don't think that situation will be changed one way or the other. If a restaurant is permitted here, that's something that is currently existing. And other aspects that were brought up that are currently existing, for instance, people congregating at the west end of the plaza. Again, that's a policing issue. We certainly will do everything we can. I know that we have, in other cases, we've had security deal with situations like that, and that's something that obviously we don't want to see any more than anybody else does. It's not something that promotes the success of the plaza, but you know, we will obviously do our best to try and control that. And the point was also made that there are workers coming at 2 or 3 in the morning, and that's something I'm definitely going to look into right away, because I believe the town of Aurora has a noise bylaw that would prohibit that. And I'm not aware of that. That's the first I've heard of that, and we'll certainly look into that. That's that is a concern. And you know, I recognize the concerns, all the concerns that were brought forward. That this is the home of where the residents live, and that's an important, very important aspect of development. We created those homes, and we will do, as Julian has said, we will do our best to work with the residents and hopefully come to a solution that will be mutually acceptable. Julian, I'll pass it over to you if you have some additional comments to make.
Yeah, thank you, Dave, and thank you, committee, and as well as all the residents that have spoken and those that have turned on their YouTube to participate and listen to the presentations. I think Dave's done an excellent job in sort of speaking to a lot of the concerns. We're happy to address more concerns of the committee. But I think one thing that's clear here is that, you know, we understand and we can appreciate where the residents are coming from, and we're willing to continue to work to make the plaza as successful as possible. And that's for the immediate community who are the direct customers of the tenants of this plaza, and the homeowners who are purchasers of ours and other developers who wanted to make this community happen, and we can appreciate where they are coming from. I did want to speak to, I guess, some of the permissions that are allowed here, and perhaps if Matthew at a certain point later or at request of the committee would like to speak to it, or someone from the city, but there are a number of uses such as places of entertainment which are currently permitted on the site, such as a cinema, a theater, auditorium, public hall, bowling alley, billiard hall, arcade or indoor play area. These have been permitted for a number of years. We've never suggested that adding any of these to the community would have a positive benefit on the plaza or a direct positive impact on the adjacent neighbors. And I think we're going to continue to work with them and try and make this the best plaza as possible. But I just wanted to highlight that, you know, very similar uses are currently permitted. This does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act in response to the minor variance. And there are similar uses already permitted in this plaza, such as the Tim Hortons drive-through, as well as existing permissions for places of entertainment, service shops, and other pieces. So, but thank you for allowing us to speak on that. We're happy to let you guys go now.
So thank you very much. And for those individuals who spoke and those who are following this meeting on YouTube, just thank you as well for your participation. We, as a committee, we value and appreciate your comments. I think just maybe for the benefit of those who have raised the question of previous applications, maybe before I go to the committee, it has come up just about on every deputation that's been made. And so I'll just go to Matthew, if I may. You know, we understand the planning, or I certainly understand the Planning Act, and most of the folks on the committee understand the Planning Act, as do the applicants, in that, you know, there is, there are provisions in the Act that allow these things to come forward on other applications. And I'm reminded on my computer here, I will go back to just before you answer that. So it's just a briefing on, Matthew, if you don't mind, on the Planning Act and the fact that the application that has come forward is certainly allowed to come forward. It does, it doesn't sorry, I'm watching my screen here as well. I'm trying to read as well. It does allow these things to come back to the committee for different reasons, different applications. And Brisanthi, I think you just mentioned that no one else did come forward. And so just for the record, I'll just ask one more time if there is anyone from the public that does wish to address the committee. Now would be the last chance. And I don't believe there was, if I'm not mistaken. Brisanthi, did anybody come back?
You're correct. Out of the 5, we only have our 4 delegates here. The last one hasn't responded, so I think we'll just we can continue.
All right, so thank you. So Matthew, just for the benefit of the non-planners, if you will, or the planning background, just to maybe summarize that. It wasn't part of our package, and there's a reason for that. So go ahead.
Through the chair, as a landowner, you are able under the Act to submit a planning application on your property, whether that be an official plan amendment, zoning amendment, draft plan of subdivision, consent, or a minor variance application. So the applicant is in their right to submit the application before us to committee today.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, we did as a committee, I don't know if it was with this particular committee, it might have been the previous committee, we did entertain an application for the daycare, which is on the same site, if I'm not mistaken.
Through the chair, yes, I believe that was in 2017 that was approved.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. So I'll look to the committee and for comments and questions. So maybe I'll start with Clarence this time through, my vice chair.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, just thank you for all the members of the public for their presentation and also that of the applicants. Through you, Mr. Chair, I know both gentlemen mentioned a few times that, you're constantly being requested by restaurants to join the club, I suppose, to operate within your property. Can you just share with us the type of interest and the type of restaurants, proposed tenants that have approached you folks to sign on?
Sorry, is that a question for the applicants?
Yeah,
yes,
that's
a question for the applicants, yes.
We do have our property manager, leasing manager that deals directly with this. His name's at the bottom corner for myself, David Fristalio. I'm not sure if his voice is on or not. However, we've had Clarence just to speak to a little bit, and perhaps David can more, or if Mr. Fristalio is also on the call. But we've had numerous requests for varying different types of restaurants here over the years. I think it would be belaboring a bit to necessarily go through every request, because every request doesn't mean that it would be something that we would agree to lease on. However, there's been anything from juice stores through pizza restaurants and anything to sit down restaurants, anything sort of in between. Again, just to be clear, that doesn't mean that it would be something that just because someone showed an interest for the lease that we would be going forward with, regardless of permissions.
All right. Maybe I want details. So I mean, there's juice bars. I think you mentioned sit-down restaurants and the like, and I fully appreciate on the 1,500 square foot space. One can easily accommodate a sit-down restaurant of about 40 to 50 people. It's 40 to 50 customers. Have you folks been approached by any restaurants of such sorts, and what type of sit-down restaurants have been approaching you folks to rent the space?
Yeah. So Clarence, I guess the reason, and this is an important point, and perhaps good that we speak on it, and Matthew perhaps can talk to it as well. The reason we ended up at this specific size is just a function of a calculation based on the parking requirements. Because we are not tying the use to a specific unit of the commercial plaza, because we cannot control where somebody may be willing to go or what is available for them. It is certainly a calculation and a maximum that we are suggesting so as to not require any additional parking on the site. The application is not made in a nature of which we had a specific applicant asking for this size of restaurant, a specific unit or anything sort of in that manner, which would have led us to this exact size. It is simply a calculation based on the on-site parking here. And Matthew sort of could speak to that as well if you wanted to hear planning staff's opinion on that.
What, help me, since I'm not in the business, like what would be the size of a type of restaurant that you suggested earlier, or the type of use for food operations, like a juice bar? I mean, do they need 1,500 square foot of space, or are we talking about something less?
I couldn't personally comment on that. I'll let Dave speak to that if he has anything, or else, I mean,
yeah, we could accommodate the size. If it's less than 1,500 square feet, we can certainly accommodate that. That happens to be the size that would be accommodated by the parking that's available on the site. That's how we arrived at the maximum, but it could certainly be less. I can tell you the most recent inquiry we had for a restaurant was a pizza establishment. And the majority, if not all, are of the takeout type of restaurant with limited seating. The inquiries that we've been receiving.
What's I know there are different sections in the plaza, and from the record store to dry cleaners and whatnot. What are the sizes of the units that you have operating? I suppose just more interested on the smaller scale. What's the smallest unit that you have there?
Well, that's a good question.
I do have the drawing in front of me that I could try my best to give you an approximate answer. I believe it is around the 1,000 square foot size, but I did not prepare for that exact question, though we could get that answer at some point, maybe later in the presentation.
All right. And just your earlier point, I think it was you, Mr. DeGasperis, you made a comment that it is the pandemic is going on, and lots of vacancies and vacant units, in particular within your property. And isn't it? You agree with me? It's a bit of a two-edged sword that you mentioned, because at the end of the piece, if the application is approved, you're going to fill it up with any restaurant that can operate within the unit, right? And you're not looking to really just find a juice bar or anything that will fit, because would you not agree with me? The application, if approved, would just allow the operation of any restaurant within the property?
Yeah, unfortunately, Clarence, there's no way for us for you to necessarily delineate that. That is a function of the zoning bylaw, in my understanding, for Aurora. It does not, differentiate from many different types of restaurant uses. So yes, I would suggest that that's right. I mean, I think what we're talking about here is an additional tool for Hollidge properties in order to fill vacancies that are currently held in the plaza. I think a successful plaza and not a rundown plaza with lots of eyes on the parking lot, it would be a safer and beneficial thing. I think we're looking to allow ourselves a little bit more opportunity to find good tenants that benefit the greater community.
Right. So my earlier point, and I think you would agree with me, at the end of the piece, you can operate a restaurant, you're going to find whichever restaurant owner who might be interested in renting the space, whether it be a juice bar, pizza place, takeout place, or a sit-down restaurant. I mean, isn't that just the reality of it?
I think I'm unclear. Just sorry what you're saying there. You're saying as soon as you grant us the permission, or if you were to grant us the permission, and we would just turn around and bring on one of these vendors, is that?
Well,
Yeah, there's no mechanism, I believe, stopping that from happening. We're just being frank here and honest with the committee, because there's no tool for that in your zoning bylaw that I'm aware of. There are conditions of approval that we have in front of us here on the maximum size and the number of restaurants. So we could not populate the whole plaza with restaurants if we were granted this permission. It would just be one unit we were looking to populate there. So yeah, but yes, you're in fact correct.
All right. So the concerns, for example, that were made by some of the members of the public regarding odor, noise, loitering, and the like, might come into reality if at the end of the piece you have a bar that wants to come and rent your space. Is that not fair to say?
Yeah, I'm not sure in specific to a bar, but as I mentioned earlier, and perhaps Matthew can speak to it in more detail if the committee asks, but already places of entertainment are permitted in the zoning bylaw and in the official plan. So I'm not sure exactly as to a bar, what that would fall under. We're not asking for a bar in any manner. I'm not sure if it's separately defined from restaurant.
But okay, so let's not mention bar, but restaurants that would require sit down, 40 or 50 people. That certainly certainly would be within the parameters of the property owners to accept as a potential tenant if this application is approved. Is it correct? I mean, there's no restriction as to the type of restaurants that you can bring in, so long as this application that you're seeking before us is approved.
Yeah, I think we're clear on that. Truthful, not looking to hide anything. There's no mechanism on anyone's behalf to differentiate there, in my understanding of where we're at here. And
is it the case, and since other applications involving the use or having restaurants on your property was brought before the town in 2003 and 2009, that's a similar type of issues were raised at the time with respect to odor, noise, traffic, and parking?
That is true. These were comments that were raised. I mean, we will always do what we have to do within the bylaws to ensure that the plaza is run properly and in accordance with the proper standards that are in place.
Okay. What about one of the comments I believe from one of the members of the public concerning the distance between your property and that of those in the backyard on Bayville Crescent? Like, what's the approximate distance there? That is from the building, the back of your property, the various units, to the back of their backyard fence. What's the approximate distance?
So the building is separated by a lane.
Yes,
which is 6 meters wide, plus a 3 meter landscape strip, and then the rear yard of the home, which is probably about 7 meters, I would think. So that would be 16 meters.
All right, just back to the property, but from your building to the fence, the edge of the fence of the neighboring properties on Baywell Crescent, so it's about 10 meters.
Yeah, it'd be 9 meters, 6 meters plus 3. Yeah, maybe 10, because there's a little bit of space from the lane to the building.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Clarence. Let me go to Michelle.
Can I don't want to be rude, but my battery is about to die. I have to plug in, so I'm going to step over here and.
Please feel free, David.
Look after that.
We still see Julian there. He's more than happy to jump in, I'm sure. Go ahead, Michelle, please.
Yeah, through the chair, and just a question to town. And again, it continues the conversation that Clarence is having in terms of the type of restaurant. Is there anything in any of the bylaws or zoning to disallow certain types of restaurants or restaurants that require fryers and those kinds of things that emit strong odors?
Through the chair, there is not a mechanism in the bylaw currently. There is a mechanism, as you can see on the lands, where a new definition is applied, but my understanding is that we haven't done that in quite some time.
Okay. And then my second question, is there anything in the town bylaw or zoning that indicates hours of operation in terms of when the restaurant must close?
Through the chair, that would be something that's administered through the bylaws division. The zoning bylaw does not regulate hours of operation for restaurants.
Okay, so if we were to approve this application, they could potentially have something that's open, like a pizza place that delivers till 2 in the morning.
Through the chair, if it is compliant with the bylaws administered by the town, then as long as it's compliant, it is good to go.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Okay. Let me go to Daniel at this point, please.
The advantage of working with this team, oh, sorry, through the chair, the advantage of working with this team for this long is we're pretty much all aligned with questions. The one that I would have remaining is, with everything going on and the changes in availability in real estate, have those requests been fairly recent, or are they more of an average over the last few years?
The requests have been over many years. The most recent was, within the last few weeks, which was surprising, of course, but and that was a pizza establishment. But certainly since March, we haven't had the degree of interest that we have experienced over the last several years, for sure.
And I hope I can, Clarence, speak to your earlier point. I think when I couldn't mention the specific types or couldn't list off all the individual types, I think it's because of what I meant to say is that I was speaking over the last 11 years, the history of this plaza, of this commercial center. And I think, even this has become more accelerated over the last 3 to 5 years with the prevalence of e-commerce. You don't have a shoe store looking to open up this plaza necessarily, though we would be willing to have any tenants, any good tenants here.
Thank you.
So just a continuation, David, on my last question. Has that demand been similar to other demands for whatever else could be in there? You've had a record store in there lately. You've had you have a successful convenience store, etc. But has the recent time period seen a variation in that demand, or is it fairly, whatever it has been in terms of the type has been the same?
Yeah, there are certain givens when you have a plaza like this. For instance, a convenience store, number one, a dentist, for instance, very, very common. Things like the record store, the wine shop, the make your own wine place, they seem to come and go. But the convenience store, the restaurants, in a lot of cases, they are more, they survive. Although, in restaurants, again, you're going to see restaurants come and go as well. But we've seen predominantly the most sought after use for this plaza over the years has been restaurants, which is, it's always unfortunate because of the restriction. So we couldn't take, accommodate those requests. So.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Steve, any comments or questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. So, just as I go back through the history here, I see, a similar request being denied twice by council. And really, I think it's fair to say that Tim Hortons is only there because of an OMB mandated settlement. So I guess my question is here, and other than the passage of time since 2009, what, and I truly am empathetic. I mean, I realize that the mall is suffering, but I mean, we need to consider when we say is it an appropriate development, we need to consider if it's really appropriate, not just from the financial and the commercial sense, but also for the community. And is it a good use and appropriate development from the community? So I guess my first question is, what has changed since council denied this application for a restaurant twice, other than the passage of time?
Well, the main thing is the preponderance of inquiries for restaurants, and virtually nothing else. I don't mean nothing else, but there haven't been nearly the inquiries that we've received for restaurants for other uses. And it's the market is shouting out to us, this is what works on this site from a market standpoint. And you know, the uses that we have there's 4 vacancies, and you know, I'm concerned there may be more, and the more viable we can make the plaza with active uses that will bring people to the plaza, the better it is for all the tenants. And that's our objective, is to help the mall, or help the plaza survive in tough times.
And what's more specific about this ask and how this application differs a little bit is that working with planning staff, the application is much more specific in that it's only looking to require or looking to ask the committee for a maximum of 1 restaurant. It is not we're not looking for a blanket ability to permit restaurants in the plaza. It would just be 1, and it has a maximum area so that there would be no way that could be expanded otherwise without coming back before the committee.
Okay. No, and I do get that. Although it is, you know, it is a restaurant. At the end of the day, it's a restaurant. It brings all the concerns that, you know, led to, you know, this request being denied in the past. You know, and I guess the next question is, you know, when we talk about there being a restaurant there right now, and we've heard some of the problems that it poses, you know, it was there as a mediated solution that at the end of the day was agreed to, and we've heard the residents, they you know, they were okay with the, you know, with what the mediated solution was by and large. Has there been any discussion prior to coming and bringing this minor variance with any consultation with the community? And if so, what were those discussions?
No, there were not.
And why not?
Steve, sorry, just to talk on that a bit. We did just receive the comments yesterday. And I don't think we appreciated the nature of which the opposition would be perhaps so strong. But no, there was not any specific
well, I mean,
Julian, I think I know where Steve is coming from, and that is there is history here, and perhaps that would have been a smart thing to do, to meet with the resident. I get your point.
Yeah. So I mean, absolutely, David, and I think you know, Julian, and I understand you weren't here, and you know, in the past, but yeah, I think this could have been foreseen. And the one thing I will put out there is that there is still an opportunity. There is still an opportunity to defer this application, to engage in a consultation process, and reapply at a later date. So I put that out there, you know, because what we're hearing here and what I have heard is, you know, concerns by the community, concerns about garbage. You know, the two of you saying that you're willing to work with the community, but the reality is I haven't heard any we're saying that it's 1,500 square feet. We can't control who's in there, right? We can't control, essentially the garbage that they produce. We can't control the odors that they produce. They're 9 meters away from the property line. We can't control which unit they would potentially want. And so I'm not hearing anything that has changed from what has made this application fail in the past, other than the size being reduced and it only being 1 unit. But the predominant concerns from back when this was denied the first and the second time are still there, and I'm not seeing an effort or any real way to mitigate those concerns. And then getting to my other point earlier, which is we need to see if this is an appropriate development, consider if it's an appropriate development from both the commercial and the planning point of view, but also it has to be good for the community. And the argument's being made that this is good for the community. And I mean, going through that area, I don't think the community is underserviced in terms of restaurants, and I'm not hearing that argument is being made. I understand that from a commercial perspective, people believe and it's good, and there's questions there. But I don't think the immediate vicinity, we've heard about the negative aspects, but I struggle to see how the community there is really short a restaurant, right? And so that's I'll just maybe put that out there for comment. How does the community benefit? I've heard how the commercial space develop, and the mall benefits, and it's struggling, and I get that. How is this in the best interest of the community here?
Well, I think it is in the best interest that the mall succeeds. I don't think it's in anybody's interest to have newspapers on the windows and potential opportunities where premises are not occupied, where people might come and at all hours of the night. These things happen when there are vacancies. On the issue of garbage, though, I do recall when the Tim Hortons discussions happened, is that we agreed that the garbage would be contained within a room. And as I recall, I think Tim Hortons air conditions that room. But this goes back to, I think, 2003. And in that case, the proposal wasn't turned down. The proposal was brought forward and approved by council, if I recall. And then in 2009, you're quite correct. The similar proposal for a restaurant use was turned down. So here we are again, 11 years later, and it's the preponderance of inquiries that has brought us here for this for this application.
And thanks, David. And just maybe for the record, through you, Mr. Chair, maybe we can go to staff, because my understanding was that it was denied by council, appealed, and the OMB mandated a mediated solution here. So perhaps we could, through you, Mr. Chair, go to staff and confirm.
Yeah, I think that's worth hearing from staff on that point alone. Matthew, have you got that information at hand?
Through the chair, I believe Steve is correct, yes.
Okay, I stand corrected. I'm sorry, it was a long time ago.
No.
But that was my recollection. I apologize. That's stand corrected.
I believe it was a settlement, not a decision, if that's more clarity.
Yeah, no, it was, a mandated mediated settlement, I believe is what it was. So I guess, David, you raised a good point when you talk about Tim Hortons and them having an air-conditioned room, and I think there were some significant restrictions put on the approval of the Tim Hortons, which we are not seeing in front of us today. So we're hearing a lot of concerns and not seeing any, and I understand your willingness to, to work with the community, but we're also not seeing any evidence of that, which I'm not saying it wouldn't happen, but there's nothing for us to consider here. So I'll just put that on the table, and with that, I think, those are all my questions. But just I would urge you to consider what I've mentioned here. So thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all my questions.
So thank you. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give the applicant, I'm just going to repeat the options that you've got. But before I do that, because a lot of comments have been brought forward by members of the public with regards to loitering and noise and what have you. I reached out to Matthew today and asked if he could verify if there were any complaints that bylaw enforcement or others might have received at the town. Matthew, can you comment on that?
Through the chair, I don't have access to that now, but in looking back at the 2009 staff report, issues of consideration regarded garbage odors, noise, loitering, and increased traffic and drive-through uses. The applicant and staff at the time had some mitigation measures in those reports to address a lot of these concerns. For example, garbage odors, I think Mr. Stewart touched on that as it was enclosed, and I think that's the case for several of the units on here. Regards to odors, there's building code requirements with respect to ventilation and exhaustion, so they have to meet those standards as well. Noise from delivery trucks and vehicles, those types of things are regulated by our noise bylaw, the town's noise bylaw. Loitering as well, it's a matter of a bylaw enforcement matter. And increased safety of the children was also raised, and the focus seemed to be on McMaster Avenue, and there's no additional driveway there. I can, if this does get deferred, I can look into if there are any recent infractions and bring that to light.
The reason I bring that up, Matthew, is normally these things, if a resident had a complaint or if there was an issue of loitering, there are steps that the residents can take to bring these to the town's attention. And there are opportunities for bylaw officers to visit the premises and verify and remind the tenants that they do have obligations there. So I bring that up because I don't, if I'm remembering the information that I received, there were very few incidences reported to the town. I'm going to just also ask, the applicants. I hear, a lot of comments, that I think could be mitigated by some actions that, David, Julian, that the owners could possibly sit down with the residents and maybe, come to some agreements. For example, if a restaurant was permitted, that garbage would have to be managed in a certain way, or that steps could be taken where a restaurant is located to increase the buffering, increase the sound transfer through either planting or fencing and those types of things, which as a developer, you guys, the industry has come a long way in the last 10 or 15 years on how to manage these kind of situations. Roof venting and noise attenuation. Those are all things that I think I'm hearing the residents talking about, that you may be able to, or may have been able to sit down with the residents and come to some agreements that would make it easier, I think, for this committee to find a way, or certainly from my perspective, personally find a way to be more supportive of the application. So, with that, and given the fact that a lot of what I've heard from the residents, these are longtime residents. These people have lived there for quite some time, and so they're very familiar with the conditions of their neighbor being a commercial operation. That you might find that they would be more supportive. In my case, when I look at it, I know you've got vacancies there, and it's very tough in this economy to fill those vacancies. If it were at all possible, I would, in order to help mitigate the impact on the residents, would have thought perhaps you might want to consider a restaurant use and limit the location of that restaurant, perhaps as close to the Tim Hortons as you could get. There's a grade differentiation there that I think would have helped as well with the separation, not the physical separation, but certainly views and what have you. So that would have been something else that I might have come forward with your application and possibly look at that as an option. So with that, I'm wondering if you might want to take the member up on his offer. And I see Matthew, was there something that you wanted to, I missed your notes, so I'm wondering, was there something you wanted to add?
Through the chair, if this does get deferred, we can also explore the option of an amendment to the site plan agreement to deal with some of the matters that are arising. I'm not sure if that involves noise reports or something to that effect. That may be something we can explore and see if there is a possible solution to work with the applicant and the residents.
And I also think that in sitting down with the residents, another important item that could be put on the table are hours of operation.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well, David.
Yeah.
If you were bringing forward a specific, application for a specific use, and you've got somebody who's waiting for a green light here, I can see you wanting to move it forward. But I'm wondering if it might not make more sense to make a request to defer. I'll leave that in your hands. That's your decision to make tonight, not the committee's. But based on what we've heard, I can tell you I would have a hard time supporting the application as it stands at the moment.
Okay, so Julian, blink twice if you agree.
I think certainly there's an opportunity, and I think everyone can appreciate that with the current place we are all in the world, all of us we are doing a virtual C of A meeting right now. Perhaps there was some misappropriation by us to not maybe reach out a little bit more, but perhaps there's an opportunity to have a representative selected by the street there to speak with city planning and ourselves about and Matthew looking at what is available and the tools at our disposal to try and find a solution that works for everybody.
Yeah. And Julian, that's on me because I'm the one who's been here since day one, so I take that.
So am I understanding then, gentlemen, that you would like to make a request to defer?
He's blinking.
That was two. I saw that, Julian.
I was not sure.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree with that. I think that is certainly a good recommendation. I would agree with it.
Okay. So having said that, I'm going to look to the committee to bring a motion forward to defer the application to a future meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. Clarence?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the request of the applicant to defer the application to a future date to be determined.
Thank you. I'll look for a seconder. Stephen, thank you. All in favor? And that's unanimous. I'm going to just, before we leave, I'm going to thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate the honesty with which you answered those questions and answered the comments from the members of the public and the community. I am going to suggest then as well that for the benefit of those who are still online and participating or watching this meeting take place. So what we have done is we have agreed to defer the application to a future date to be determined. We meet once a month, although lately it has not been, but we are trying to return to that frequency. And so meeting once a month, either virtually or hopefully in the very near future, back in our original configuration. I would suggest that the residents potentially reach out to Matthew or the town to coordinate a meeting with the applicants and work towards addressing as many of those concerns that have been brought forward tonight, so that if there is an agreement and some conditions that would come back through a site plan amendment, that would be one way of doing it, that we can then review and incorporate into an amendment. So with that, I will thank everyone and thank the applicants, and we look forward to seeing this come forward again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you.
Okay. We have one final item to get to, and even before they come forward, I'm going to thank them for their patience. The next item on the agenda is minor variance 2020-11, and this is for 130 Addison Hall Circle. And this is an application as follows. The following relief from the requirements of the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended is requested. A, section 10.1 of the zoning bylaw permits warehouse as an accessory use where the principal use is industrial. The applicant is proposing warehouse as a principal use. And comments from agencies circulated are as follows. Engineering services reviewed the application and have no objections. Building division, a preliminary zoning review was conducted and no comments provided specifically on the application at the time of writing this report. Accessibility advisor reviewed the application, have no objections. Operational services reviewed the application with no objections. Central York Fire Services, no comments provided at the time of writing of this report. Legal Services reviewed application with no objection. Regional Municipality of York reviewed the application and have no objections. And the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, no comments provided at the time of writing this report. So we have the applicant coming forward here, and welcome, gentlemen. No objections in the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. No comments provided at the time of writing this report. So if I can ask you just to turn off, I think one of you has your YouTube audio still on there, so. So I think it's Mark Moore and Christian. Gentlemen, do you wish to make a presentation, or do you have any comments that you would like to make?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Christian Nguyen, and my colleague here is Mark Moore, who is my Senior Project Director. Cavalier & Associates, first of all, delivers over 40 years of development and construction experience managing industrial, commercial, and institutional projects. The organization is best described as a development of project management firm commissioned by owners, developers, tenants. As the trusted advisors and representative, we act as the single point of contact to oversee the entire process, including entitlement, design, development, tendering, permits, and execution. Currently, we are overseeing more than $250 million worth of development and construction projects within Ontario and the Northeast United States. Our client, applicant number 2181617 Ontario Inc. is operating as BOSA International. They have commissioned us to oversee this development project on their behalf. And before I proceed with any further with respect to the variant, I'd like to give a little bit of a background information to you all to who BOSA International is. So BOSA International was incorporated in Toronto in August of 2007, focused on wheels, hub assemblies, aftermarket sales, product research, in customer service in Canada and the United States. BOSA has offered one of the most comprehensive lists of auto parts bearings in North American markets with product line where hub assemblies and wheel bearings for passenger and also light truck duties. Now, I do want to note that the BOSA, they import all the product mainly from manufacturers in China, right? So there is no productions on our end. A year after inception, BOSA established its U.S. office in Los Angeles, California, experiencing consistent growth and demand. Warehouses were set up in Toronto, i.e. in Richmond Hill, and also in Irvine, California, to better serve their customers. BOSA currently has over 20 employees, and we'll add more personnel to the Aurora warehouse when it's up and running. Now, in the past 12 years, the BOSA has working relationship with major automotive parts importers to supply, in particular, the AutoZones, O'Reilly, Canadian Tire, and other major warehouse distributors in North America. Their annual sales has reached over $30 million in 2019, and I believe they are consistently expanding, offering other products with their based on market demands. Right. So, BOSA International had an opportunity to purchase the site Block 11 at 130 Addison Hall Circle. My apologies. The plan is to basically build around a single-story multi-tenant use, 47,000 square feet in total. And so, based on the bylaw requirement sections 10.1 of the zoning bylaw, warehouse is an accessory use where the principal use is industrial. So in this case, we are proposing the application as a warehouse, as a principal use. If I may take this opportunity to go back to the staff planning report that was done by Sean LaPena of the planning department, dated June the 8th. In it, it discussed about, in particular, 4 major parameters. The first parameter they talked about was the proposed variance meets the general intent of the official plan, in which they mentioned that it met the requirements. The second parameter they talked about was the proposed variance meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Again, same thing. All the intention was put in place, and we met the requirement there. The third bullet points to that report is in regards to the variance is considered as desirable for the appropriate development of the lot, right? And finally, the last bullet points to that report is the variance is considered minor in nature. Now, also in the report, it mentions that as of the writing of this report, there was no objections from the city at all. So, based on that, on the information that was presented by the committee, the planning department has recommend approval of the requested variance. Also, if I may take this one last moment, is to put into your considerations back in, and according to my understanding, was file number MV201913A. The property, again, is in the Addison Hall Park, considered as Block 13, which is actually adjacent to us. In that particular file, they also requested for a minor variance with respect to being a warehouse usage, primary usage. In my interpretation, I understand was that that relief was granted to the applicant back then. I have on my team right now, which is Mark Moore and Jeff Parkinson, who is our prime architect for this project. I will retire at this moment and give the podium back to you, Mr. Chairman, if you have any other questions for us. And thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my client.
Thank you very much, Christian. Appreciate that. I'll just protocol here. I'll ask if there are any members of the public who have come forward while we have been meeting that wish to speak on this application.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no members of the public to speak on this application.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Staff, have we had any comments from anyone in the public that have come through as written or emails?
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, we haven't received any comments from the public either.
Okay, terrific. All right, thank you very much. And I'll turn to members of the committee if there are any questions or comments. And let me start with Daniel.
Thank you. Through the chair. Quick question. I see that there is 8 bays to this warehouse, shipping and receiving bays by the look of them for the most part. What is the flow rate of traffic that is expected at this warehouse? Is it more of a logistics center than a true warehouse, or? Well, I'll leave you with the first question.
So first of all, there was a study that was performed by the developer based back in 2016, and we actually just recently did our operational assessment study on that traffic. And overall, the traffic we account for basically 3% of that, and that number equates to, I believe, is around in total 9 out of the 278 traffic counts. That's for the AM in the morning peak hour count, and I believe it's 8 out of the 255 in the PM peak. So for our client, it's more of a logistics center to be bringing the product in, distribute it out to the various retailers.
Okay, and I guess to the town then, when the town does its review, it does look at the aforementioned traffic analyst. That is something that is looked at in terms of if we were to change the type of usage to be warehouse/logistics center, that traffic is taken into account, especially considering the type of traffic.
That's to staff.
Through the chair, yes. This would have to undergo, subject to approval, it would have to go through a site plan application in which a report of that nature would likely be part of the complete application requirements. as determined through a pre-consultation meeting. And our traffic analyst would review that information. And that would be the case should there be any subsequent amendment to the site plan.
Okay, so with that, through the chair, my concerns will be dealt with at a later date, so I'm good at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Michelle, anything on this application?
No questions on this application, Chair.
Thank you very much. Let me go to Clarence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
Thank you. Steve, any comments or questions?
Yeah, just two very quick comments, I think. So just following up on Daniel's question, through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, I realize that it's part of a site plan review. It's typically part of a site plan review, but it's not mandated. I'm just wondering, Matthew, if we were to include it as a condition to do a traffic analysis just to validate, or is this something that is essentially part of what is the site plan review that would happen in every case?
Through the chair, you don't have to impose a condition for it to require to go to site plan. Under our site plan control bylaw, this type of use, being an ICI use, is required to go through the site plan process. When we do the pre-consultation meetings, we have it circulated to all staff, and the traffic analyst is one of those staff that is circulated. At that point, he would determine, based on the information provided as part of the submission for the pre-con, whether or not this analysis would be required.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Matthew.
No problem.
Thanks. And I guess just another question, a quick one. So I noticed in the application that and this is to the applicant through you, Mr. Chair, there's a note in the staff, the staff report that this operation is to be wholly enclosed, because I noticed that when I'm looking at the drawings, certainly a warehouse operation, sometimes there tends to be external storage and warehousing, and that would impact the traffic, analysis. So you just confirm that that's the case, that it would be wholly enclosed, the operation?
Yes, Mr. Chair and committee, we can confirm that there will be no outdoor storage on this property. Everything is enclosed inside the building. And we have conducted our traffic study as per the site plan agreement and our pre-consult with the town previously.
Fantastic, thank you. So through you, Mr. Chair, just question to staff again. So can we just make that condition of the approval that there would be no outdoor storage, or would that just be a note? I'm just thinking about, and obviously, everybody always has the best intentions, but without a control mechanism or it recorded, often things over time evolve, and I'm just wondering if that's a condition that we can impose. So maybe over to you, staff.
Through the chair, yes, that is something you can impose. Right now, the zoning bylaw exception zone doesn't permit outdoor storage, and nor does the parent exception, the parent zone. But if you are looking to protect for the future, you can add a condition subject to approval that there be no outdoor storage with this new use on the lands.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
So thank you very much. You just covered off the one concern that I had as well, Steve. Thank you very much for doing that, because if we approve this would obviously apply to the intent of this particular owner. However, in the future, should they outgrow this particular premises and decide that they want to move forward on another location, that the new owner or tenants could potentially be having, the use of the yard for outdoor storage. And that would be one of the other questions I was going to bring up. As an importer of product, and I'm assuming this is all finished product and coming from China, as you mentioned, Christian, do they bring that in containers? And is it the intention to unload or offload the containers directly into the warehouse, as opposed to parking them on the site somewhere while they wait for offloading, or do we know how that's going to be managed?
The product will be offloaded right into the facility immediately, right away. And after that, it will be resorted out and sent out to the various distributors out there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I've had some experience in a previous career with the use of containers, and often it happens they show up when you least expect it, and you end up having tractor trailers parked all over the place while you try and manage material that's going out or other material that's coming in that's been scheduled. So that would be my only concern, and I would strongly suggest not that we are worried so much about the owner today, but certainly tomorrow. So I would like to see if a motion comes forward to approve that it does include a condition that no outside storage be permitted on the site. And I see, Christian, you're not objecting to that as a condition if I read your body language there.
Yeah, like I said, based on the site planning right now, there is very limited space for us to even leave any sort of trailers on site. And if we do, we would in breach of our fire department's code right there.
Okay, so I'll look to. Thank you for that, Christian. I appreciate that. And Mark, your comments on the site plan requirement for traffic impact study. I'll look to the committee then for a motion on this application. Steve, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'd like to move that we approve the change of use contained in minor variance application 2020-11, subject to the conditions discussed today, that there will be no outdoor storage, and I don't believe there are any other conditions in the staff report, but subject to the staff report and this additional amendment, the condition that we will be added that there will be no outdoor storage permitted on the site.
Thank you. I'll look for a seconder.
Michelle? Second. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Through the chair, I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. I'll call the question. All of those in favor? And I see again 5 hands. So thank you very much. That carries. Gentlemen, I really appreciate your patience in waiting all of this time to get through there, but I can assure you that the wait was worth it. So well, thank you for your attendance at the meeting this evening.
Thank you so much. The wait was well worth it, and the experience was terrific too. You're a great committee.
Yes,
we appreciate your time this evening. Okay.
And
thank you for staying late for us. Okay.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Again. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye now.
So with that, members of the committee, I'll ask if there is any new business to be brought forward. And I see nothing from the committee, so I will look for a motion to adjourn. Daniel?
Where'd he go? There he is.
There you go. Through the chair, I move that we adjourn our first electronic meeting.
Our marathon session.
Thank you very much, everyone. We are adjourned. I just wanted to give you the opportunity, Daniel, because you've had your hand.
I just want to contribute something.
You have been very instrumental in the meeting, as all of you have been this evening, and I appreciate that. I appreciate staff. Prashanthi, thank you very much for marshaling members of the public in and out of the meeting. I really do appreciate that. Matthew, as always, your attendance and participation has been very much appreciated. Samantha, thank you very much for coordinating all of this with all of the applicants, making sure that they were able to get on board. And I think that's going to just about do it. It was a bit of a marathon, but we got through it, folks. Well done.
Excellent. It wasn't too bad. I think, I
Thanks,
think
everyone.
the public were